Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Registered Nerd Podcast. I know it's been, several months since we've last recorded, but
Yeah, we're both in grad school and we've not exactly been keeping up on it, but we're going to try to record more often.
yeah, but it feels like appropriate to start off our return with the Rise of Skywalker for episode 15. We
Oh,
just saw it, and we have some thoughts on it.
it's fresh. It's fresh. So right off the bat, so we will not get into spoilers until a little bit later in our talk, but right off the bat, um not a good film.
Oh
I don't
no,
think
no, no,
at
no, no.
all. Not that it didn't not that it was completely terrible. I after it was done, it was like, well, every time it did something good, it immediately followed it up with something bad. But I personally think it was better than The Last Jedi. Um, what do you think?
Geez, that's a really well. I mean, it's not a high bar to set, but
Oh no. But The Last Jedi, and we've talked about this a million times, so we don't need to talk about it now, but The Last Jedi was broken from like for just the plot made no sense. Like there were ways to solve problems that were in the Star Wars universe right there, and they just didn't do it. So the film was just broken. I don't think this film was broken.
oh, I
Like,
think I think fundamentally it was pretty broken.
well,
There's some
I
good stuff in it, but there's so much bad. It just like I
I think
hesitate to
the
say it
whole
was better.
trilogy yeah, I think the whole trilogy went wrong so quickly that, like, it would have been hard to save this movie,
Yeah,
but this movie was, like, retcon the movie, and I understand that. I understand, like, J.J. Abrams was probably sitting there at the end of The Last Jedi going, "Oh my god, like, what do we do with this? Like, how do we put this back together?" And that's the I think right off the bat, like, that's the biggest flaw with these films is there's no overarching guiding force that they didn't have a story that they wanted to tell from the beginning. If they wanted to tell this story that they basically crammed a trilogy into this last movie, and it almost makes the other two movies completely pointless. And it's like if you wanted to tell this story and spread it out over three movies and do it correctly, you could have done it. Um, but
yeah,
they didn't. None of this was correct. None of this was done
yeah. That
right.
was one thing about it is like I felt like the content of the movie was squished from what it could have been, and I'm pretty sure that's probably got a lot to do with what happened in the Last Jedi.
Well, and the first act of this movie, I don't even know. I'll have to watch this movie again before I can even tell you where the acts begin and end. Like, but what I would right now, my initial thought of like the first act of this movie is they went to so many locations, and it was we have to get this thing to get this thing to get this thing to like do this, and it's jumped from location to location to location. It never had time to breathe. Like it was just a whirlwind, and I don't even remember hardly what happened. I You and I were keeping, like, a MacGuffin count,
Yeah.
for a while, and it was so they were looking for the waif okay, now we're gonna get in crap, I don't wanna get into spoilers already. Before we get into that, uh, like, I was shocked at how bad the dialogue was in this film.
Oh
Like,
yeah, it's pretty cringy
it
for
it's like a fan fiction.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's on par with some of the I don't like sand dialogue.
it it's really bad, and I don't quite understand it because, like, J.J. Abrams is capable of writing dialogue. Like, Lost had some very excellent dialogue. This almost feels like they just weren't taking it seriously, like, on a conversation by conversation basis. Like, there's a lot of little, like, they're trying to be a sitcom, like, type of quips, that don't really land. I didn't really like. I think I chuckled. And keep in mind, this movie is 15 hours long. I did legitimately laugh two or three times. I think where I was like, okay, that was funny. Some of it was C-3PO. He had a couple, but even C-3PO, the lines started to outlive their welcome because there was a part where they were coming so fast. It's like everything C-3PO said was a quip,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay,
You didn't get to chew on his lines at all. Like he'd say
no, they
something
gave
and
it
then he'd
no.
say something else and then he'd say something else and you're like, "Okay, wait. What did he say?"
Yeah, whoa, 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 slow down. Yeah, exactly. You had no time to breathe. and the whole movie really suffered from that. And it's just I I don't know, I was amazed, and it's hard, without giving away, like, individual lines, and not many of them stuck with me, but I just remember there were a lot of times that I was sitting there going like, "This is taking me out of the movie." Like, I almost feel like I'm watching a play, and the acting wasn't good either. And I think, John Boyega and Daisy Ridley and, what's the guy that plays Poe Dameron? Um, I've seen them all in other things. They're well, not Daisy Ridley, but, like, the other 2, like, they're fine actors. Like, you give them something to do, and I think there are times in these movies where they've shown that they can be fine actors, but in this, it was like, that was the take you went with? Or just the way it was shot. Everything was shot very in a very boring way.
Yeah.
Like it struck me, I know you're not a huge Rogue One fan. I think you've warmed up to it as you've seen, like, what else we've had to work with
Yeah, I
Star
mean,
Wars.
I've softened my thoughts on Rogue One, but I'm still like I still maintain that I don't like it because I think the main cast is boring as fuck.
Yeah, and that's where Rogue One falls down, but I think Rogue One has my favorite space battle in all of Star Wars, with the possible exception of, Return of the Jedi. But, like, when those X-wings come in and they're fighting over the space station, and like, there's that shot where the X-wing jumps in from hyperspace, and it's almost like the camera is mounted on the wing of the X-wing, and it kind of gives you the scale of the battle from this really interesting perspective. And it's like this small fighter that jumped into this huge battle, and there's ships everywhere, but it's very readable. Like, there's 2 star destroyers, there's the space station, there's a couple dozen fighters. It's not just chaos where there's explosions everywhere, and you can kind of tell what everyone's doing. And there's a weight, like, every time it's almost, I'll compare that battle almost to, like, the Wrath of Khan, where it's like every shot, everything that happens seems to have some impact on the battle. Like, they get the shield up on the station, and a couple X-wings that are trying to make it past the shield, like, crash into it, and it, like, you feel the weight of what's happening. It's CGI, but it almost feels like model work. And compared to that, the final space battle in this just felt like it had no stakes. It was shot in such a boring manner. Like, everything was okay. 5 miles away, you see a swarm of TIE fighters chasing an X Wing. Like, there was nothing visceral about the way the dogfighting was shot. I don't think we saw a single capital ship fire on another capital ship at all. Um, and I just couldn't believe how boring the space battle was. Like, we were getting into the movie. I think we were like 2 hours in, and I kind of thought like, "Wow, we've had basically no space battles," and I can't wait for the space battle because that part will probably be awesome. And then it happened, and it just wasn't. It was lame.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if they just didn't know what the fuck to do, but I don't know. It was not good.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, that right
I
off the
just
bat,
I
that
just
part was
remember
awful.
you like looking at I don't think I've ever gone to a movie with you where you were on your phone. I was like, God, he must be bored out of his fucking mind right
It
now.
it well, yeah, there were parts where it was so long, and it felt its length that I almost never forgot that I was watching a movie. Like, I'm usually pretty good at, like, getting into the film, and, like, Marvel movies aren't perfect, but I know during, like, Endgame, I was locked in the entire time. And, during the Guardians movies, like, I get locked into those movies, and I'm just like, the movie ends, and it's like, "Oh, I'm back to reality." This, I never forgot that I was in a film. Like, it just felt like, "Okay." I'm
Yeah,
like, it's like, maybe it's because I was, like, trying to process the choices the whole time, and I don't mean the characters' choices, I mean, like,
the
the
writer's choices.
directors and the
Yeah,
writers'
yeah.
choices, um, because some of them were so baffling. But, and, like, so we've already talked about, like, the movie's too long, the pacing, especially for it calms down a little bit in the second half, but, like, the pacing in the first half, I can't even say the first act because it's like an hour and a half long, and I don't even know where it ends. But, like, the pacing is terrible. What'd you think of the music?
Not anything particularly great. It was all kind of just remixed stuff from the past and nothing like
Yeah.
fresh sounding. I honestly half expected to hear what was it from the duel of fates from Phantom Menace at one point.
I had heard, I had heard Duel of the Fates was in it actually, and it kind of if it was, we both missed it, but I don't unless they just sampled part of it, but I don't remember Duel of the Fates actually being in the film.
Well, that's what I said. I half expected it, like to hear it like full blast
Yeah.
when one of the times where Rey and Kylo were fighting.
Yeah,
So
Palpatine's theme was in it and was pretty good. It was almost like a little overproduced though. Like they almost added it a little bit too much reverb. I know they were trying to make it like even more epic and um but yeah, I overall I would say the music was like not great. It wasn't super memorable other than the fact that it was just like, oh, Star Wars that I've heard before. It wasn't terrible. And I guess it was used fairly appropriately, but
yeah,
I'm not a music expert. I'm much more into the plot and but I know when it's not like doing anything for me and I nothing really stands out to me with the music.
yeah. Nothing was very yeah.
Yeah, so eh, and then I will say okay, so again, before we get into plot, is there anything we can praise right off the bat? I think that like there were I still think the world building is terrible, and we'll get into that. Universe building, galaxy building, whatever you want to call it. Like what the fuck is going on in this galaxy um was really weak in this film. Okay, fuck it. Let's just dive into spoilers. We're diving into spoilers because it's hard to talk about this film
Yeah,
without,
yeah. It really is.
um the where we left off in the last Jedi, it seemed to me like the First Order had a massive fleet. They had knocked out most of the resistance, basically almost all of it, everybody that wasn't just on the Falcon. And they had knocked out the New Republic's government and they were taking control. And it certainly seems in this film like they're in control because literally every place that the resistance goes to, they're looking for a MacGuffin, they're looking for this, they're trying to do that. Everywhere they go, their first order stormtroopers already there oppressing the population. Help, help, we're being oppressed. And so to me, doesn't that indicate to you that the first order like rules the galaxy?
Already, yes. Like they don't need to like
Yeah. So
further their. I don't know. Like I
so
don't.
so here's the plot as far as I understand it. Like Kylo Ren hears that the Emperor is still alive somehow, and he finds the Emperor, and the Emperor says, "Kill Rey. I'll make you the new Emperor, and I'll give you these 10,000." It's literally thousands of Star Destroyers. It is a comical number of, even for a galactic empire, it's a comical number of Star Destroyers to have. How does he man them? Like he has this one planet, Exegol.
And
Is
how
it
did he build them? I mean, if he doesn't, I mean, if Exegol is so unfindable, how the fuck did he get all those built there?
the resources? Yeah, I
I
always
don't know.
thought the First Order kind of like I was always incredulous about the First Order's resources, but now you find out the First Order was just a arm of Palpatine's like hidden forces. Like it's a small percentage of them. So this is Kylo's thing is he says, okay, I'll give you all these ships if you kill Rey. And then what Kylo's trying to do is get Rey to join him so he can just kill the Emperor and take all of these ships. But I'm sitting there going like, why does the First Order need these ships? Because it seems like they already rule the galaxy. Like it's then that's what I mean about the world building being really shitty is like no one's explained what the fuck's going on, but it really seems like from everything that's implied that this is all unnecessary. Like
Yeah, like there's a first order presence on every single planet they go to.
everywhere they go, and it's not like they go there and then the First Order shows up. Like everywhere they go, oh, they're First Order patrols, or they're already literally oppressing people in the background, and you're like, okay, so they have the resources to be on every little backwater shitty planet, you know.
Yeah,
Um, so maybe it's not. Maybe they just have a chunk of the galaxy, but if so, that should really be told to us because it certainly wasn't shown to us. Um, and then what the fuck is Ray trying to do? Ray's trying to also find Palpatine because to me, it's like even though they're doing a shitty job of dealing with the First Order, they think they can go take out the Emperor who has 10,000 times as many ships. I think they say at one point, they literally say, that the Emperor's fleet will increase the power of the First Order 10,000 times. And I assume the First Order has more than one ship. So, like,
Yeah, right.
although I don't know, that light speed attack, oh my god, they retconned so much. We should just talk about what they retconned from Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah. I
The
like
throwaway line about why don't we just, why don't we do a couple holdo maneuvers, meaning jump their ships into the star destroyers at light speed, and I think what Poe's like, that's a one in a million shot. It's like, okay,
no,
was it?
no.
Because if
Was
so, her
it?
whole plan was terrible.
Right, yeah. If that was such a risk, why would she do it anyway?
Right. Like, and she was just incompetent, but that was something that they retconned. Um, they retconned the fact that there's like the Resistance has more X-wings and more ships, and
Yep.
I mean, I guess some people could have joined them in the interim, but it's like they were literally 12 people on the Falcon when we last saw them at the end of the movie.
Right, right. It's just I don't know. Like I said, a lot like you said, a lot of the world building is just not
It's
um
terrible. It's
yeah.
it's it's really awful.
And I
Um,
thought I thought for sure that they were just gonna be like, oh yeah, Ryan Johnson did his own thing and we're just gonna go in our own direction. It's like, nope, they doubled down on some of the shit that they did, like how
yeah,
force users can some or force ghosts can now interact with
matter.
matter.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I guess that's a thing now.
yeah.
Um,
That kind of, you can't start doing stuff like that because it creates all these implications and all these questions of, why didn't Ghost Yoda just, kill the Emperor or something like that with Force lightning? I don't know. And then you've got to create reasons around that. And it's same thing with the Lightspeed RAM. It's like once you do something like that that fundamentally affects the world that much, you have to have reasons why it's not ever used or dealt with. And then they didn't go to that step because they didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, I guess.
yeah, like
But
okay, so when the film, where were they at? What planet were they on when we first saw the Falcon? I can't remember
oh,
which
I
planet it
I don't
was.
I don't fucking know. They introduced like four new characters and I could not tell you any of their names in this movie.
Well,
Which
it's just I'm just like in the beginning when they're when they light skip through all those like planets.
oh,
I
well,
was like
they
I
weren't
was
even on a planet. That was like an ice
Oh, that's
meteor or
right. It was like an
something.
ice meteor. That's right.
Yeah.
To get the information on the spy from the First Order, which I guess like you can't transmit that.
You can't even, yeah, they had to plug it into the Falcon. I was like, they don't even have Wi-Fi on this station.
Right.
Um,
So like they like and you could have written a way around that. Like have it be a person from the First Order who won't talk to anybody but General Leia, and then you go and collect that person.
right.
Like
That would have made
what?
more sense.
That would have made more
Also,
sense. Like
talking, I guess if we're just going to go through the movie scene by scene, God help us. Um,
yeah.
when they do that hyperspace skip,
I was
which
so irritated because I was like, I'm pretty sure I leaned over to you and I was like, isn't it kind of dangerous to just jump into hyperspace without a plot? Because couldn't you just like
they
run into whatever and die?
that's what Han said. They didn't even explain it. Like they're just they did these quick little jumps from place to place. Um, and okay, and here's the other thing. The TIE fighters followed them into hyperspace. So, one of the things that has always been true of Star Wars is, and these are box standard TIE fighters, okay? This is getting into a little bit nerdy, but they were TIE fighters that were chasing them, and the Falcon jumps to hyperspace, and the TIE fighters just follow them. And I'm like, "O- okay, regular TIE fighters have hyperdrives now. Like, the whole point of the TIE fighters, it's super light, and they don't even have, the guys wear suits because they don't even have like atmospheric systems on board. Like they're super light and super nimble, and the whole thing is to save weight. And they like apparently bolted some hyperdrives onto these things. I thought that was very strange. Like, use a different ship. It doesn't have to be a TIE fighter. Like the Empire has other ships, the First Order has other ships.
Right.
But yeah, the whole skipping through hyperspace was, it made for kind of a cool like shot. I guess that was one of the ones where it's like they were, because they weren't in space once they started doing it. They started doing it in like atmospheres and stuff. Um,
Right. Right. Right.
but and then they had a throwaway line where Ray says the Falcon can't do that, and Poe says, "Yes, it can." Okay, I guess we can just move on. I guess we dealt with that.
It's
um,
like, you can't do that. Well, we just did. Oh,
there, w-
okay.
there were a lot of scenes where, especially with like Poe and Ray and John Boyega, Finn, um, he's not even Finn in this movie. He's just John Boyega. It seems like he's like he's not even acting. I've seen him act in stuff. He's not acting here. There's a lot of scenes where like characters run up to each other and start yelling, and it's like that became like the Star Wars thing. Like there was a lot in the first movie too that J.J. Abrams directed where characters run at each other from different directions and start yelling. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to think like, did that ever happen in the original trilogy? Like where did that come from? When did that become a Star Wars staple? I don't even think it happened in the prequels. It's just it's a shot that he likes to do that I'm starting to notice as a trope where it's just like,
Maybe, in one of the scenes where they're running from the Empire soldiers and Han is like yelling to Chewie about something. That's about it, but not like,
but that's
but he
almost
didn't
like
like,
they're running in the same
yeah,
direction.
but
This is like
he didn't like scream
right.
like
This
they
is like
do.
we landed the Falcon or we just got out of danger and we all run in from different sides of the camera and start yelling. You know where I think it started? I think it started in the Force Awakens after they got off of Jakku on the Falcon, where Finn and Ray like run up to each other and start yelling over each other as the camera like kind of pans around, and it's like okay, they're excited, but like he pulled that trick a lot, and it just got old in this movie. Um, Everything is just shot. I'm back to how it's shot, but everything's just shot in a really boring manner. And like even when characters are excitement, there's nothing like about the way this film is shot to like build excitement. It's all like very flat. Um
Yeah.
okay, so they got that whole first mission was just to say that there was an imperial or I'm sorry, a first order spy. Um
Yeah, and then in that amount of time, I mean, you already kind of highlighted it that, Kylo Ren found Darth Sidious.
he found the emperor. Oh,
eh,
he found Sidious in the first 5 minutes of the film.
Yep, he found him, and then
Literally the first thing that happens.
we see Emperor Palpatine. So my question is, okay, he explains that he was behind Snoke, and you can see like all the weird like clone corpse Snoke things. Um,
Yeah.
and my question is that is the
Why were they
Empire
growing
is
multiple Snokes?
right? Well, in my other question is what was that the Emperor from Return of the Jedi, or was that like a weird like hobbled clone that was like blind and broken?
I got the impression from the movie that it's just the Emperor and he's just gotten so old, because he was pretty old at the end of Return, and now it's been what, like 30 years or
Right, right.
or whatever.
I'm asking if it's like the same emperor, or was that
I
emperor like I'm they
don't
didn't really
I don't
clearly
know because the
explain
movie
that.
didn't tell me.
Like I just don't want somebody to be like, well, it was obviously a clone that Vader threw down the shaft. I'm like, that makes the scene so much cheaper. That like
Right.
in that
Well,
insults the sacrifice that Anakin made. But
I got maybe that's why he's like blind and damaged was from what Anakin did at the end. But he should be atomized because the whole station blew up. Um
yeah.
And also, and you're right, it completely negates what Vader did and Vader's whole redemption. Also, just skipping way to the end, at the end when
Also, I sorry, I have to cut you off there. I want to
it's
say
okay.
that because I mentioned if they do that, I was going to be upset because it was going to shortchange
Yeah,
what happened at the end of Return of the Jedi, and Webbed what we were talking about. He goes, well, in the extended universe, Palpatine had clones and stuff. I was like, that doesn't make it okay. It still makes it
right.
fucking stupid.
Well,
It's stupid in
also,
the extended universe, and it's stupid in this one.
well, and that's because, and that's the problem. The extended, and I know he really likes the EU, and there's things I like from the EU. I'm not nearly as big a fan as him. I think it's kind of better than what we've gotten with Disney, but the EU had the same problem that this has had, where it's like they only know how to tell one kind of story with Star Wars. It seems like the only story that they know how to tell is the there's the big evil guy and he's got a super weapon. And that's what this came down to as well. And it was like with that, it almost becomes the EU goes for a really long time after the Battle of Yavin, and it's like I've read bits and pieces of it, and I've read synopses and stuff, and it's like well, there's a Jedi and a big brother, and one's evil and one's good, and they fight. And then 2 generations later, there's one that's evil and one that's good, and they fight. And it like kind of repeats, over and over again. And they keep. And I'm like, the New Republic stood for 20,000 years, and then ever since like the Emperor, it's like the galaxy's been in constant war. But I guess that makes for interesting stories. But it'd be cool if they jumped farther down the line to make it more realistic because like I don't think the galaxy would tolerate being at war for like 250 straight years. And the EU has the same problem where like a lot of what Luke and stuff did is completely negated because a new empire rises up like repeatedly. I think at one point even the New Republic like turns evil because of who gets in charge of it. Like again, it's like 1 generation later and another like Sith Lord gets in charge of it.
Right.
So but yeah, at the end of this film, just talking about Sidious, aka Palpatine, and like at the end, I didn't even think about it, but you turned to me and you're like, so in the throne room, there's literally what would be millions of people, like in this giant arena that's around the Emperor's throne. And you turn to me and you're like, are those all clones of the Emperor? And I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't get it because like there's literally millions of people. It would be so many. Like that room is enormous. And they're all just like hooded and cloaked the way the Emperor is. So I don't know if they're just supposed to be like Sith followers, like his little entourage, or like you never see their faces. You never see them close enough. Like the way this film is shot, everything's far away in like shitty grainy CGI. So like I don't know what was going on in that room.
Yeah.
Like I would guess that they were just like his like like followers, but there's literally like a million of them. Like that arena is absolutely enormous. Like I've been in a stadium with 100,000 people, and that arena like completely dwarfs it.
Yeah.
Um, but okay, so where we leave off? So they got the news that there's a traitor, which is of dubious value later in the film,
Right.
and then they find out we need to get the MacGuffin that Kylo Ren had. He's got a different one, but there's two apparently. So we have to find the MacGuffin to find the Emperor
That
because
a it was a it
that
was
and the Emperor
A
came out
Sith
of nowhere.
hunter a Sith hunter named Uchi, right?
Ochi,
Had
Ochi.
like a way a, to find the Wayfinder,
Which
basically.
why does everything in these movies now need like a fucking wayfinder and stuff? I don't understand that because it used to be they just like went places. They knew where there were star charts and they knew where planets were and they went there. But now it's like we needed to get a MacGuffin to find Luke, and now we need to get a MacGuffin to find the Emperor. It's like nobody just knows where planets are. Like that's how Star Wars used to work. They were never like, oh, we have to find out where Endor is. Like they're building the second Death Star over Endor, but we don't know. We have to find where Endor. And they're like, no,
Well,
Endor's right over there.
remember how and I can't believe I'm using prequel like world building here. Remember
Oh, the prequel world building is miles better.
how the archives in on whoa, what is it? God damn it, Coruscant. That's what it is. The archives on Coruscant have like literally everything mapped out,
And somebody
and
specifically
somebody
erased the record.
specifically erased the record, and that's how they found out where the clones were being made on
Uh-huh.
what was it?
Camino.
Camino. I almost said
Yeah.
Geonosis. That was the bit. That's the wrong
That's
planet.
where the
Yeah.
clones fought. It's the
Right.
same
Right.
movie,
Right.
but yeah. Yeah, so so they go to this planet that for some reason, how did they know that the MacGuffin was on that planet? I don't. Oh, because
Because
Luke had looked for it
Luke
apparently.
looked for it, and Ray was when she was training with Leia. Um, she was looking through Luke's
Yeah.
diary.
And Luke apparently got within like he found the ship. He didn't like have them take the ship and completely strip it down and make sure that it wasn't hidden in some panel. He just
Right.
searched the ship and was like, "Oh, well, it's not here. I
I
guess we'll
guess
never
it's
find
not
the Emperor."
here. Right. I'll
And
just
like,
give up.
that makes it like doubly insulting that Luke just went into exile when he knew that Palpatine was still there, like with all his power. Like I could almost buy it if Luke thought, well, like the threat of the Emperor is gone and there's a new republic and the galaxy doesn't need me, I'll go into exile. But the fact that he apparently knew that Palpatine was somewhere, like that makes that movie so much worse.
Right.
But anyway, so So Luke got within like 30 yards of it and couldn't find it because he wasn't a dumbass and fell into a hole. By the way, great coincidence. Like, oh, we fell into this hole and that like
Yeah.
found us the guy.
Well, I like how they, they get to the planet or whatever, and it's like a celebration bullshit. I was so irritated. I think I face palmed like at least 5 times during this movie, like out loud.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you noticed, but I was doing it a lot. Um, but like when when they get to the planet, was it called Pasana, right?
I don't your memory for that kind of shit's better than mine. It's the desert planet number
Yeah,
15.
yeah, and they're having the celebration, and Ray walks by that little girl or whatever, and she's like, they give her the necklace, and
And that's what Kylo rips off her
yeah,
in their force
and
vision
they're
because now
like
you
weird.
can do that. You can
Yeah,
transport
you
matter.
can transport matter across the galaxy through the Force, which is really
Yeah.
fucking weird. Oh, I forgot to mention that part where they're doing like I kind of laughed because there's that scene where Kylo's talking about the plan for getting the ships for the Emperor,
Hmm.
and I can't remember what. Oh yeah, the one general guy, as he's listening to his talking to his council, telling him, Palpatine wants us to find the what do they call her, the scavenger, and kill her,
Yeah.
and we'll get all these ships and stuff. And the guy's like, okay, he promised you 10,000 of these star destroyers. What does he get out of it?
And he
And
gets choked.
Kylo Ren just like lifts him up and slams him on the table, and I was like, that's kind of a
It's
legitimate question. I
it's
mean,
such a reasonable
that is
question.
a
Like,
reasonable question that your council might ask you.
it just makes Kylo Ren look like a petulant child when it's
Right,
like,
right, right.
stop asking completely reasonable questions.
How dare you? It wasn't like like it would be like if Grand Moff Tarkin like told Vader like, "Hey, this is the plan," and Vader was just like, "No, fuck you," and just like slammed him into a wall. Like
It just makes no
it makes
sense.
no sense.
So they've got the Wayfinder, which is basically a little like Garmin GPS for the Sith, apparently. And then C3PO decodes it, and C3PO can't tell them what's on it. Did we skip something? What did we skip?
Well,
Oh, we skipped.
we skipped the whole because Ray has the vision with Kylo. Kylo gets the necklace. They analyze where the necklace is or from, and that's how the
Yeah,
First Order
which is
finds out.
fine.
And then like
That's how the First Order
they
finds
find
them.
Ochi's ship, and then they fall through the fucking holes in the sand, and then they meet that
Well,
like they find Ochi's body, which
the
has the
sandworm.
which has
Yeah.
the sandworm like burrows and whatever, and they find the dagger, which basically says this is where the other Sith Wayfinder is.
Oh, fuck, that's right. Oh my god, MacGuffin number 2. So, if you don't count Kylo's MacGuffin, then it would be MacGuffin number 3. But they find the dagger. Now the dagger is gonna take them to the Wayfinder. Oh my god. Um, and then C3PO reads the dagger, and he can't tell them what's on it. Also, the First Order captures Chewbacca, puts him on a transport,
Well,
and Rey and Kylo I see, that was okay. I like
see, one of the things that I mean, I guess it we have to talk about that weird like scene where she like heals the sandworm thing.
That's fine. I'm
The,
like, Obi-Wan healed Luke. I'm fine with her being able to heal it. I guess she had a connection. There's some precedence for that in some of the video
I
games too.
suppose there's a little bit of that, but I just think
Yeah,
it's
they're
really
supposed to
funny
like
that
calm animals and
like what was it? C3PO says that he can read it, but he can't
say what's
speak it,
on it.
say what's on it, which is
And
fucking
he can't
stupid.
fly the ship there. It's like a lockout.
Right.
It was just, I don't know why, because the movie didn't need the padding. Like the whole C3PO arc there didn't need to happen. At the end of the movie, so real quick before we go back to C3PO, there's an okay scene where she destroys Kylo's TIE fighter with her lightsaber. Kylo and her like see through or Chewbacca is captured. He's put on a first order transport, and she grabs it with the Force and is trying to pull it down. And then Kylo like is fighting her with the Force, and then she gets so upset and loses control and accidentally zaps the transport with Force lightning and kills Chewbacca. I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, it sucked that she killed Chewbacca, but it's like, oh, she's learning like, oh, my what I do has consequences. Like I have a lot of power. Like I thought that was fine. Spoiler alert, they immediately roll that back. Chewbacca was on a different transport. Um,
Yeah,
like immediately. They don't let anything
that
sit.
seems to be a J.J. Abrams thing
Just
too,
constantly in
where
this movie, they roll shit back.
they he likes to bait out a death only
Yeah,
to
and then
not have
bring
it
it back.
happen. He did
Well,
that
that
with he does that with a lot of his movies too.
Yeah.
So
So to decode the dagger for C3PO, they have to basically reset him. They have to put him to factory settings. For some reason, like whatever they're doing to him, it will reset him as well as allow him to translate the dagger. So they do that. So they basically kill C3PO. And then they roll that back at the end of the movie too, because R2D2 has a personality backup.
right.
I didn't know R2 they mentioned that like it's been a thing. I didn't know R2D2 had backups of
Well, that
C3PO's
was
like
the thing is like
personality.
they say it like right in that scene, right before they reboot C-3PO, and he's like, they're like, oh, doesn't R2 back up all your data? And he's like,
He's like, it's
R2 units are
unreliable.
unreliable, and it's like, oh, okay.
Like when he always seems like the
When
most
he always,
reliable
yeah,
character.
he seems like the most consistent character in this entire fucking series.
Yeah, he didn't go live on an island for 30 years. Um, so they rolled that back too. But anyway, long story short, God, this is all the first act, by the way. Like this, this is like a whole movie. Um, then we go to location 3 or 4. We've also been back at the base. The base is on like a generic forest planet. We've gone back there a few times. So now they go to Endor. Was that Endor or was that supposed to be another moon in the Endor system?
I think it was supposed to be another moon in the Endor system.
Okay. So
I
the
think.
so the Sith dagger, which isn't like a lightsaber dagger or anything, it's just like a dagger. Like it's just a piece of hunk of metal. Um, they go there and she holds it up.
Yeah,
Like,
she like
first of
finds
all,
like a little flap thing that like opens up
it
and it like
comes
has
out.
it's like a compass almost.
It made no sense though because like she moves the dagger until the edge of the dagger matches the like the debris. By the way, the Death Star is there, like a big chunk of the fucking second Death Star,
Not even like a big chunk, like just a massive chunk of it. Like it's not
a
like even
huge piece of it.
like it's like half of the Death Star is there, and it's like
Yeah,
okay.
it's like did that get atomized and like? But anyway, so
Yeah,
just
yeah.
maybe the special effect was wrong. Whatever. So
And if it did explode and like crash on the planet, wouldn't it have like killed like everything on the planet?
I would imagine
Like
something that
wouldn't
big falling from
yeah.
space would have been like an extinction level event for that
Right,
planet for
exactly.
sure. But so she's standing there and she moves the dagger around until the cutout edge of the dagger matches some of the like debris from the Death Star. But isn't that really contextualized on where you're standing? Like how did she know she was did I miss something? Like how did she know she was
No,
standing in the right part of Cliff?
that was definitely very contextual.
Okay.
I don't know how she knew that, and I don't know how
Like
she like what happens if you go there and you're standing on the wrong edge and you're just like, well, fuck, where do I go now?
right. No, you need like here's the spot to stand at. It's just like in Raiders. It was almost like a Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't know if that's the right Indiana Jones movie where he gets the staff and it's like you've got the light that or you've got the stone that focuses the light, but you also need the staff to be the right height and you need to put it there a certain time of day and it will shine down on the model of the city and tell you where to dig. Okay? But that had conditions. That's like okay, you need to know how tall the staff is, you need to have the right rock, and you need to know the right time of day. This was just like she landed on a planet and held up the thing and was like, "Yeah, this is probably right." You know? God, what a fucking shit show. And this movie's getting worse the more I talk about it. And I thought most of the stuff like okay, so she runs away from them. She goes, is this the second act? Are we call this was got to be act 2, right?
Right.
Okay. So we'll say that this is act 2 or although it still kind of feels like the first act. I feel like we missed did was there something we didn't talk about? Poe and Finn are like doing stuff in this movie too, but for the life of me, I can't remember
Um,
what.
I think a lot of
Oh,
it
they're with her at this point, right?
they were with Ray, yeah, from
But she didn't take them on the Death Star.
yes.
So Rey goes into the throne room because that's where the I don't know. I guess that's where she knows to go. And there's a room that's like right off from Palpatine's side. There's like a little room that's got this MacGuffin in it. So now she's got the MacGuffin. Then her and Kylo Ren fight. It's actually it's a decent lightsaber fight. It's got the water crashing all around them, and like they block each other's lightsabers with the Force a few times. I will say that was like a decent fight.
I actually liked that near the end of the fight, like they were tiring, like you could see that they were getting
Yeah,
tired, and it's like,
yeah,
oh,
they are
Ray
human.
Ray showing some sort of weakness. This is new. It would have
Well,
been nice to have seen some of this.
and this kind of blew my mind. Like Kylo beat her, which is good. I mean, I
Yeah, right.
honestly, there's one part where when she first like attacks him, he doesn't even pull his lightsaber out. He lets her, you know, fight a little bit before he even gets his lightsaber out
He's
and
just
just kind of moves
dodging. He's
around,
just
which was
yeah.
kind of cool. He beats her, he knocks her down. They both have a shared vision of Leia's death. They both know that Leia just died. His mother just died. So Ray takes this out. She recovers faster from the shock of, oh my God, Leia's dead. Even though, she's supposed to really care about Leia. She recovers faster and stabs Kylo in the stomach. Like, he just got the news his mom died via force call. And
Right.
she immediately just like, hey, let me put some salt on that, and just stabs him in the stomach. And I thought, like, oh shit. And then she heals him. And that's kind of like his moment of maybe there's a better way. And he has that memory. It's kind of like a memory force thing of his father. It wasn't a force ghost, thank God, that they didn't make Han a force ghost. But it was kind of like, I don't know, there used to be ambiguity with force ghosts of like, are they like, is Luke really seeing these people, or is it just like they're connecting with him through the force and it's kind of like in his mind? That's how I always thought of force ghosts.
Right.
I didn't think like if somebody else walked up, I didn't think they'd see like Obi-Wan there. I would think they'd see like Luke kind of like talking to no one.
Well,
But apparently now,
that happens at the end of Return. When
right? Don't they
he's looking at
and
Yoda and
nobody
his
else sees
father,
them?
and
Yeah,
she's like, "What are you looking at?" He's like, you know, uh,
yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah, but anyway, so Kylo has a little bit of an arc in this movie. I'm actually okay with Kylo's story where, he's like, okay, he's gonna help them. Um and kind of. And then what the fuck happens? Like, so now Rey is going to confront the Emperor, right?
oh, you know what? We forgot part of the second act. We forgot about the part where they go on the First Order ship to rescue Chewbacca.
Fuck, and we forgot about the part where they go to the planet to get, well, we kind of talked about it. They go to a whole nother place to get C3PO's memory read. There's fights with stormtroopers and another character gets introduced. They're not really stormtroopers, I guess. They're just gang members.
Hmm.
Um yeah, so okay, so when we said we were done with the first act, no, the Death Star is act 2. There were two other locations in the first act. God, this movie is long. Um
Well, and when they go, yeah, they go to the First Order thing to rescue Chewbacca. They get caught, um, because Ray goes to look for the dagger, while they go
right.
to, well, Foe and
That's how
Foe
she got the
Pin
dagger.
Finn and Poe. Jesus
Pin
Christ.
and Poe. Foe and Pin.
Phone pen. They go to rescue Chewbacca, and she gets the dagger, and then like she has the another Force like Skype call with Ben,
Right.
and they fight. I just the idea of them fighting with lightsabers when they aren't actually present is just I was just kind of rolling my eyes the whole time.
What if the rooms weren't the same size and like one of them, like there's a wall? Like they hit things in the room, but it never really seemed to affect like how they were actually moving.
Right, and then
Like,
she swings at him, and he dodges it or whatever, and she cuts open that like basket with like the berries or whatever, and like all the berries
yeah,
spread all over the floor in the Star
on the ship.
Destroyer on the ship, and I was like, okay, so I guess not just like stuff you hand can like you
It's like they're
handle
almost,
can like it's almost like you're in the
yeah,
same room. It's like you're like
they're in a pocket universe that's bringing
right.
in like elements of both universes. Because then it happens again and it destroys the pillar with Darth Vader's helmet on, and that's how he knows that she's in his quarters.
Yeah,
and
so
then
he
like
so he lets he lets the ship know, and the ship captures,
locks everything down.
locks
Yeah,
everything down, and that's when
and
it's revealed that
everyone's
the spy was
everyone's favorite character.
everyone's favorite character, General Hux. And he's just like, I just like how he like just comes in. He's like, "Yep, I'm the spy." and I
I'm the
was,
spy,
and I like
and it,
that's just like how that's just how he reveals it. He's
and
like,
you're
"I'm the spy," and you're like, "Oh, oh,
well, and I
what?"
thought for a second I was like, well, that's kind of interesting because like he's a really deep spy. Like he's done some shit. And I was like, you know what though, that kind of makes sense because like when they shot at the base instead of the escaping ship in the Last Jedi and stuff, I'm like, okay, like he purposefully is making like poor military decisions to try to give the resistance the chance, and then he's like, no, like I just don't want Kylo Ren to succeed, and I'm like, oh,
So
okay,
you
so
are an
never mind.
idiot. So
So
you
you're
are
just
an
an
idiot.
idiot.
Yeah,
You're just bad at your job. So like they could have retconned that and kind of made him a little bit more interesting where it's like he's just really good at playing an asshole, but really he's a resistance guy and he's just so deep undercover and he's been doing this for 15 years since he was a child. And it's like, no, none of that. He's just an incompetent dick.
yeah. And then so he leads them to the Falcon, and as they escape, he tells Finn to shoot him in the to make it look like it was like an escape, which doesn't
So he
pan out
shoots
for
him
him
in.
anyway.
No, he just gets and he goes up and he's like, "Oh, they escaped." And the general turns around. The other general, General Payne or whatever. Was it General Payne?
It was
Major Payne? Was that a movie from the
major
90s?
pain. Yeah.
What was his name?
Fuck. What was his name? Uh,
General Purge? General Phasma?
mm,
General
I don't remember now.
General Angry British. Anyway, he shoots him in the stomach in the middle of the bridge and like he blows the shit out of him and he dies. That's it. Anyway, okay, so moving on. Hey, back to world building for half a second. Two little things bothered me, minor details. When they're on the desert planet and they're being chased by the stormtroopers,
Pride.
which
His
we
name is Pride,
Pride. I like Payne better. I think he should be General Payne.
or Major
It's
Pain.
like, yeah. So as they're being chased by the stormtroopers have these like snowmobiles, except they're on dirt, so they've got these like big treads in the
Oh
front.
yeah, I mentioned that to you when when we were
Yeah,
watching it. I was like,
I
cause
I was
cause
already thinking about that, and I'm glad you did too, because I'm like,
that seems
don't
very
speeders
impractical.
exist? Yeah,
Yeah,
like why
like
would you want to be tied to the ground when you could literally have a speeder bike that flies?
right. It didn't make any sense.
No.
I don't.
And there's another thing, when they capture the Falcon, there's 3 TIE fighters that are pulling the Falcon up to the Star Destroyer comically with, like, 3 little wires. Like, they're physically connected to it and, like, dragging it through space. And I'm like, there's tractor beams were established in the very first movie as a very common thing. It's like, so now TIE fighters have hyper drives, which they've never had before, and now we have to drag shit around with ropes instead of using tractor beams, and like we have to have wheels. And it was like in Rogue One when they had that Imperial tank and for some reason it had treads on it because they built the actual model, like they built the actual tank on a tractor chassis, and the idea was like it was going to be a hover tank, and for some reason that just didn't work out. Like they just didn't do the special effect, and now it's like the most impractical wheeled vehicle ever. Like it's just lazy. But it was weird. I thought those were they just somebody just thought, "Oh, it'll be cool if they're like, like snowmobiles on dirt." And somebody was like, "Oh, it'll be cool if the TIE fighters have to physically like how do they get the Falcon up there? Oh, I guess they'll connect cables to it and pull it." Like it's fucking 1830s and they're, sail ships and stuff. I That blew my mind.
Yeah, that
That's
was.
nitpicky. But it like I said, it's just down to the world building. Like it didn't feel like Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could call it a nitpick since the scene itself with the chase is fine. But like the idea that the First Order would not have hover bikes when they should have them is just retarded. And then
Yeah.
the fact that they were so surprised when they had jetpacks, I was like, jetpacks have existed for a very long time.
Yeah,
So
Boba
how are
Fett
you
had
surprised?
yeah, like, even stormtroopers have had jetpacks before. Like, I don't know if in the films, I don't think they did, but, like, um, they in like, even in the Star Wars expanded universe, the non-legend stuff, like, jet troopers have been a thing for quite a while. So it was a little like, "Oh, they," and that was another line that was just bad and corny where Finn's like, "They fly now," and Poe's like, "They fly now," and it's like, okay, what is this? What am I supposed to feel when I watch this movie? Like, I think they just leaned into, well, this is the contradiction before we're even done with the movie. This is the contradiction. It felt like it was for kids and not in a way that like Star Wars used to be for everybody. As I was watching it, I was like, this is just for kids because that's at the level. This movie is made at a third grade reading level. Okay. But on the other hand, no little kid is going to be able to maintain, like, in 2020, no kid with the attention span that children have are going to be able to sit through this movie. No kid's going to spend 3.5 hours like watching this just go from place to place. Like,
Yeah,
I,
I mean,
it's so in one hand it's only for children, and on the other hand no child could sit through it. And like you said, I was on my phone a couple times. I was checking Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram because long there was nothing happening on the screen, and like it was going to be a couple minutes before anything happened. And I'm not saying like action. There was no like interesting dialogue happening on the screen or beautiful shots. It's not a good looking movie. In my opinion, I don't think it's a good looking film at all.
oh no.
I think Last Jedi was better looking,
Oh, I think yeah, Last Jedi was much better looking as a film.
and I think Force Awakens was too.
Oh yeah, Force
Um,
Awakens was beautiful.
yeah, this just felt like cheap, and maybe because it was so long and there were so many reshoots, and like you can only do so much CGI. But man, um, so where do we leave off in the plot? Everyone's going to Exegol. I do remember the name Exegol. I don't
Um,
remember the name of Poe's girlfriend, and I don't remember the name of Finn's girlfriend. I also thought it was kind of insulting that the woman that Finn connects with had to be black. Like, and I don't normally care about that kind of stuff. Like, I don't really care what anybody's race is or gender as long as their character's good. But it kind of felt like I had somebody said, and I this was before we saw the movie, but I heard somebody say like Poe and Finn both caught a bad case of the not gays. Um, since they were both like like, oh, here's your female, counterpart, here's your girlfriend, and here's your girlfriend. And I
right.
was just kind of insulted that like Finn's girlfriend had to be like black. It's like, okay, these are the characters that go together. And then I know Poe is, I think he's Latino, but like, I don't know. I just thought that's like really, you have three black characters in the whole movie, and you paired off two of them. Like, I don't know. It seems like an odd choice. Like, Poe's girlfriend could have been the black one. Like I said, I normally don't care about this, and it's whatever. But it's just weird in a movie that has so few like black characters that they did the old trope of like, well, they're black, so they have to fall in love because they're the only two black people.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe
I'm still trying to figure out what Lando's whole role in this film was supposed to be. He
I think
doesn't do
Lando's supposed
anything.
to be. He didn't do any. He went and got the fleet, I guess, after saying that he wasn't going to help. He said earlier in the film, "Oh, we didn't even tell people that Lando was in the movie." For all intents and purposes, he was not in the film.
Yeah, he was just a
Like,
cameo at best.
yeah, like I thought it could have been really cool, but he was a very small cameo. Oh, speaking of cameos, a positive change is Rose Tico um, did nothing. She had no role in the whole movie, which was great. Like, and again, nothing against the actress. You have to always quantify that or qualify that. Like, I don't know
Well, because
why.
people will automatically just assume you're a racist if you didn't like
Yeah,
it.
it's not because she's, Vietnamese. I think she's Vietnamese or Cambodian. I think she's Vietnamese. It's not because she's Vietnamese. It's not because she's a woman. She seems like a darling person in real life. I've seen her interviews. Everyone who's worked with her says she's like very sweet. She seems like a sweet person. Her character sucks. Her character was terrible in the first film. And I think Disney, people said, oh, if you think that, you're a racist and you're this or that. But even still, Disney didn't put her in this movie. I think she had 3 lines of dialogue and she did nothing. She like flying the transport that landed Finn on the Star Destroyer?
Yeah, something like that. And then she was basically she said she was going to work on some figuring something out, and that she didn't have very much to do in this film, which is fine. But
No. Yeah, because she's just not that character is good riddance. They brought in the 2 new characters, which were both better. Like,
I
I thought
do
Poe's girlfriend was, I mean, she's a generic gang tough chick, and then,
I do want to say that Finn was a lot less bumbling in this
Finn
one.
did seem more
He
competent.
he he
He did.
he seemed more competent than the last two films. Like
But
I
at the same time, he also had some, like, comic relief lines that didn't land for me.
oh yeah, I mean anytime him and Poe were on screen and they would talk about stuff that wasn't happening, like
Their
stuff that wasn't
their
like
banter was
important.
so bad.
Yeah.
And it was almost like they tried to make them have some conflict, but I didn't understand the conflict. Like, again, you keep having these scenes where everyone runs into frame and is already, like, yelling at each other, and it's like, "What? Why? What's going on here?" Oh my god, this movie just wasn't very good.
I think the only part that I really laughed out loud at was after C3PO got rebooted and somebody mentions Babu Frick and he's like
It's my
what?
oldest
He's
friend.
like that's my oldest friend. I was like,
I
"Oh, that was cute."
Yeah, C3PO had a couple good lines, but like we said before, they're in the caves and he's really like, and sorry, and if somebody's like listening to this and hasn't seen the movie, which why the hell are you doing that? Um, like, this plot has to make no sense because we've jumped all over, but like that's what the movie does.
Oh,
And it's so long, you forget to cover things. But like there were a couple things in the sand cave. Like I said, they were funny, but there was no time to breathe and laugh because he was already saying the next funny thing.
yeah, I didn't say anything to you when it was happening cuz like when they were all getting on the Falcon right in the beginning of the film to go to Hasana to find the dagger or whatever. I
How do you remember the name of these fucking planets? Like,
I
what
don't
is
know.
going on in
I
your
don't know.
brain? Oh my
And
god.
there's a part
Sana
where
Exegol.
they're getting on the ship and C3PO comes up and he's like, "I'm going to join you cuz you're my friends." I was like, "Okay, eh, maybe this is a nitpick and maybe it's like, oh, C3PO learned blah blah blah
C3PO
blah."
never wants to go.
Like he never that's part of his character. He's like
He
a
never
bum,
wants
like he
to
never
go.
wants to go. He
He's
would
a
have just
coward.
if anything he should have just been like, "Oh, you might need a protocol droid on your journey," something like that, or like
Right.
something like uh, or Leia says, uh, "You're gonna be needed," or Rey says, "We might need you," and he's just like, "Oh
Mhm.
no," you know.
So so for me, so then something happens. So we've already learned that the Emperor has a comical number of star destroyers. We'll just assume 10,000. You would think you'd be like, there's no way it could be 10,000, but the way this camera pans around, like there's 10,000 of these fucking star destroyers. The way that they say they're going to increase the first order force by 10,000, like they just go on like as far as the eye can see. Just it's funny. They're all just in perfect rows and it's just like forever. And it's weird too because when they actually come out of the ground, so it's like they somehow built them underground, but they don't have like doors that open and they come out. They just like crash through the planet. It's very
Yes,
strange.
it's
But
very weird. But like so at that point, in the story, they return to uh the rebel or the resistance base and find out Leia's dead,
right,
and Rey has taken what's his name's Ochi's ship and
yeah, she
gone back to Ahch-To to basically mimic Luke's like exile thing. So she
yes.
burns. Oh no,
No, she didn't take Ochi's ship. She
she
took
took a
Kylo
tie.
Ren's
Yeah,
ship.
she took the Tie Fighter. That's
She
right.
took Kylo Ren's second TIE fighter. Neither of these TIE fighters are the same one that he had in the last. Neither of them are the Silencer, I believe it was.
Right.
They both kind of look like the Silencer, but they're both different from each other, and they're just like TIE interceptors now. That's I thought was strange. That's all merchandise, so they can sell multiple different versions of Kylo Ren's ship. But anyway, go on.
Yes. So anyway, she goes back to Ahch-To, burns the TIE fighter, and is like all sad because she basically gave into her hate and attacked Kylo and blah 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 blah. And then she decides to toss her fucking lightsaber just like Luke did, and then all of a sudden,
Mhm.
I mean I'm sure you heard my
You said don't
I
before it
was,
even happened.
I
You
was
like
like,
said don't or
don't
something.
don't you dare, don't you fucking dare, and then all of a sudden Luke's hand grabs it and I was like, God damn it, God fucking damn it. And I was
I will
like,
say, like, it seemed like the people around us were like calmly watching this movie, just like you would a normal film. And you and I were just like, I usually am so quiet during movies, but this, I'm like, I have to say something.
well,
There
I
were a couple
just,
of times where I'm
yeah,
like,
well, that was the thing is that like after like Luke's ghost catches the lightsaber and he's like, hey, it's disrespectful to throw a lightsaber. And it's like, motherfucker, you just did that like two
That's a
weeks ago.
that's another well, that's another rollback. That's a rollback from the where
Right.
J.J. Abrams is saying like, look how much
Yeah.
he's grown since that idiot roundhead Ryan Johnson
Right,
his
right, right.
character.
And I just remember like at that point, uh, I was like, because she burned the ship, and I was like, and I looked at you and I go, she's not gonna raise Luke's X-wing. She's not gonna do it. No,
And I said,
no,
yes, she is. It's her
no,
only way
no.
off.
And I was like, no, 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 no. Don't you fucking dare.
It was better. At least Luke raised it,
Yeah,
which
at
was
least
better
Luke
because,
did it.
which
Yeah.
again, I mean, is also now that we've established that Force Ghosts can like do shit like that. I'm glad he did it, not her.
But it's
But
still also, but it also calls into question why Luke couldn't have come to Crate himself in The Last Jedi.
hey, I have a question.
Hmm.
This bothered me too. When she was when she was burning the TIE fighter, she was throwing wood on it like it was a big bonfire, which I thought was interesting because I would figure, like, number one, there's no trees on that island. Number two, I was sitting there going, like, if you're gonna burn that, I would imagine it'd be some sort of like self-destruct or you'd like rig the generator to blow or something. So it's like you're not going to burn a fucking TIE fighter by like putting a regular fire under it and throwing logs into it. And if you do get it to blow itself up, throwing logs onto it isn't going to help. Like it's if it's the reactor that you blew up and short circuited. I just thought that was very strange that she was standing there throwing wood on the TIE fighter. Like, okay, weird. Like just one more thing that didn't really make sense to me, but
Yeah. And then you have uh Force Ghost Luke telling her, "Oh yeah, Leia knew you were Palpatine's daughter or granddaughter."
yeah, everybody knew but
And
didn't
everybody
tell him.
knew but didn't tell you, and basically the reason is they still trained you is because they trusted in the person you'd be. And she's
Which
like, "That's enough
fine.
for me,
Yeah,
right?"
whatever, it's fine.
And that's enough to convince her. And my question is this: if Leia knew, how come Luke didn't know? I mean, I
Well,
guess you could say Luke
I
cut
guess
himself off from the
Leia knew.
Force, but like,
Leia knew. Leia knew after. Well, Leia was training her after Luke's death.
I
So,
guess.
so I guess it was Luke. Luke probably knew in Force Ghost mode when he was skyping with Leia. Okay, so we're coming. So not much of consequence happens on that island. There's a little bit of you can do it. You're a Jedi. You have all the Jedi in you. Um, then the movie breaks itself again when the First Order or Palpatine sends they're sending a Star Destroyer out to blow up a planet. You heard that right. Not a Death Star,
Oh,
a
oh,
Star
well,
Destroyer.
you forgot to
Uh,
tell. We forgot to mention that Luke had Leia's lightsaber hidden on
oh
Octu the
yeah,
whole time,
yeah.
and he tells Rey where to find it, and he tells her to take both lightsabers to
Because
Exegol.
I assume he knows Kylo's going there too.
I assume he knows Kylo's going as well,
Yeah.
but
So the Emperor, and I don't even know when this happens in the movie because it's just kind of its own thing. But a Star Destroyer goes and blows up a planet, and it's the planet that they got C-3PO, like they read the thing off of. It's his planet, and I'm just like, a Star Destroyer now can blow up a planet. So it
well,
used
it
to
was
be,
well. I remember your reaction perfectly while we were watching it because you were like, "Oh no, they're not gonna destroy the planet," and then like you see the blast come down and it starts like leveling the city, and you were like, "Oh okay, I guess this is okay," and then you have a view of the planet and you go, "No, no, no, no."
it's just you can't do that. You can't do shit like that. Where it used to take 20 years before, it used to take a Death Star that was so big that you would mistake it for a moon or a small planetoid, and it was like it took the Empire years to build, and you needed kyber crystals that were like specially harvested from a special Jedi world, and you needed like all this infrastructure and all this, and now like the the Death Star would literally be millions of times, like a million times the volume of a Star Destroyer. A Star Destroyer is big. A Star Destroyer is like 1.6 kilometers long. If we're going to get into the nitty gritty, how big is the Death Star? The Death Star is like 80 kilometers around and a giant sphere, or in diameter and a giant sphere. Um, that's such a difference of scale. That's the difference of scale between, like, a TIE fighter and a Star Destroyer we're talking about. So now you're gonna say that, like, something that small, "Ah, we just put a big gun on the bottom side of it, now it can blow up a planet." Like, who did you just write this for children? Like, how does this make any sense? In the expanded universe, there was a Super Star Destroyer, called the Eclipse that was way bigger than the one that Darth Vader had. Like, the Super Star Destroyer comes in and it in, Empire Strikes Back, and it completely shadows the Star Destroyers, and the Eclipse was, like, 18 kilometers long, or I'm sorry, the Executor or whatever Darth Vader's Superstar Destroyer was. It was like 18 kilometers long, 17 kilometers long, and it's just massive compared to a regular Star Destroyer. It's still really small compared to a Death Star. At the end of Return of the Jedi, when the one crashes into the Death Star, you see how much bigger, like the Death Star gets a little shaken up by it, but this giant Super Star Destroyer gets completely leveled. The Eclipse is way bigger than that Super Star Destroyer. It's way more massive, it's longer, and that had a super laser on it that could not blow up a planet, but it could crack a planet's crust if it fired for long enough. And that was supposed to be like, oh, we basically built a more economical super laser that, it can blow up ships in a single blast, but it can't like destroy a planet. And that took something that was thousands of times bigger than a regular Death Star. So, like, it's just amazing to me that J.J. Abrams just goes, "Well, we put a really big gun on a Star Destroyer, and now it can blow up a planet. Why not? Why not?" Like, the whole movie's just like, "Why not? Why the fuck not? We don't have speeders anymore. Now we use treaded vehicles. Why
Right,
not?
right. And
Like,
then
Star Destroyers can blow up planets. Why not?" In the next movie, a TIE fighter will just drop a little bomb and it'll blow up like a sun and it'll kill everyone in a solar system. Cause like, why not? It's yeah, come on. Yeah,
yeah, you gotta escalate that.
it's just so fucking stupid. And you know what? And they'll say, well, these movies aren't for you. And like I said, they're apparently not anymore. I don't know who they're for. Like, I don't know who's gonna like this movie. I don't. You know what? And I'm gonna talk to my like nieces and nephews because Christmas is in 5 days now. So I'll be seeing my entire family, and I'm going to talk to these kids and see, did you like the new Star Wars movies? And that's must be who they're going for. And I have a feeling I know what they're going to say because they're smart kids, but I
Yeah,
don't know.
my cousin, when we walked out of there, he was like, "Is it bad that I didn't like that?" And I was like, "It's not bad at all." He's like, "Are you, is it like taboo to not like Star Wars?" I was like, "Oh no, 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 no. You can like and dislike whatever you like. I mean, if you had told me
it's
you
it's
if you had told me
getting
you
to
love
be
the movie, I'd be
mainstream
like,
to not like Star Wars.
yeah. If you had told me you loved the movie, I'd be like, oh wow, really? What did you like about it? Kind of thing.
Yeah. I have
Um,
that reaction to people that liked The Last Jedi, and I've never gotten an answer, which is fine. Like, if somebody enjoys something, I'm like, good for you. But I people that say they like The Last Jedi, they're like, "Oh, it was just a good movie." Well, like, didn't the plot holes bother you? No, they didn't bother me. And I'm like, well, I guess if they didn't bother you, they didn't bother you. But to me, it's like you got to have some.
right. They were
It's
just
got.
there's
That's
some people
what's
that
the
have
point
said
of
it's
telling a story that's so sloppy?
yeah, they're like, oh, the story writing's so good, and I'm like, it's not though. And then you point out the flaws, and they're like, well, the
Well, you're
themes,
overanalyzing
the
it.
themes are, oh yeah, the themes are strong, or you're overanalyzing it. You're thinking about it too much. I was told that when I was asking things, when I mentioned stuff about I'm going on a tangent here, but stuff about Endgame that I didn't like just things that were like
Right.
inconsistent with
Well,
previously established rules. And I was like, it just doesn't make sense that they were like, you're thinking about it too much. And I was like, what is the proper amount to think about? You tell me.
Endgame was a difficult movie for them to make because you're right. Like, I think where you get into Endgame is like counters, like, okay, like Doctor Strange could have just done this, or Captain Marvel could have just done this. And like, that's the hard thing about, like, when they get into characters that are that powerful and there's so many of them, it does kind of become a question of like, well, this character could have really solved the whole problem right here. um and it's and I'm not saying it's impossible. I think it's really hard to like write around that. And I think in Endgame, the average moviegoer wouldn't see that. I think in The Last Jedi, the average person that's even remotely like follows Star Wars would have questions about like why didn't they send a star destroyer at light speed to catch the cruiser? The whole movie's based around the fact that they can't catch this cruiser in this low speed sublight chase.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, they've got like 18 ships. Send four of them. Each one of those ships is more than a match for the cruiser. Send four of them up there. You know.
Yeah, I
So
it's just so and then
before we
um
get too off track, we should
yeah.
talk about the final confrontation.
Oh yeah, so basically Rey she takes the Wayfinder from Kylo's ship and uses Luke's X-wing to locate Exegol, and she sends a signal to the Resistance to follow her to the location. They send Lando and Chewie to go and get like more reinforcements while they follow Rey's signal. Rey goes there to confront Palpatine.
That was another retcon because at the end of Last Jedi, um, they even say like last time we called for help, absolutely nobody came, and this time when they call for, which made no sense, and this time when they call for help, everybody comes. Like
Yeah,
this massive fleet that's just unprecedented in how large it is. Like everyone shows up, and I think that was another fu to Ryan Johnson to be like, why would no one show up? Like the fate of the galaxy is at stake.
exactly. And so Rey goes and confronts Palpatine, who says, "Oh, you're my granddaughter," and tells her that to complete to for her to become a Sith to kill him and
Yeah,
take his
basically it's implied.
place.
Well, it's not even implied. He overtly says that like he has the spirit of like all the Sith inside of him. And when she strikes him down, like, why does he tell her? Is that part of the ritual? Does she have to know? Because like it would seem like he could just fight her, let her win. She strikes him down, and then it's almost like he's gonna possess her, but it's like more of a merging where
Right.
him and all the other Sith will like take over her body, but it'll also be her, and she'll be the new Empress.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and
I was okay with
one
that,
of the things
I
that kind of
guess.
bothered me about I kind of have to rewind a little bit about the two wayfinders and trying to find those. Like if Rey had just like told Kylo, "I will help you kill the Emperor, but I'm not going to join you, but I will at least help you stop him."
Yeah,
You would have had your location of the Emperor, and the movie could have been cut in half.
there were a lot of things that could have cut them. There was stuff that just could have been
Anyway,
edited
so
out.
anyways, going back to it, yeah. So he basically says that he'll basically possess her all of the, and he has all of the past Sith lords in him, and
Yeah,
they'll
it's like a
become
big
like
merging.
a big merging of all of the Sith lords into the ultimate Empress.
And then this is also where it's actually a pretty cool thought. I liked this set. I thought this set was kind of interesting. It didn't really match with like the Emperor's aesthetics, but I guess it's him just being full on like crazy Sith. There's this huge throne that's like all spikes, like almost like stone spikes. I thought that looked okay. It looked like something the Emperor would hang around with. And he's on this like contraption that's keeping him alive. It's like a reverse wheelchair where he kind of like hangs from the ceiling
Hmm.
and he's like hooked up to it. I thought that was kind of cool. Like, again, the way it's shot wasn't very interesting, but like it was a little bit matrixy where it was kind of like robotic looking and moves him around. And yeah, this is the scene where there's the millions hooded of people, like it turns out all around them, and they're all chanting some sort of Sith chant. And I'm still confused as to whether those were Palpatine clones or whether they were just like his little entourage or the people that built all. Was it supposed to be they were the ones that built these 8 million star destroyers on this random
I have
planet?
no idea. I have no idea who they were. And then you have she's like uh saying, "I'm not gonna do that," blah 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 blah, even though that's what she came here to do, basically. And so he opens up the skylight where all of the
So she can see the
so
battle
she can see
going
the
on.
battle, kind of like how he does in Return of the Jedi,
Yeah,
showing Luke like
yeah,
the rebels are gonna lose.
and how yeah, didn't Snoke do the same thing in the
Yeah.
Last Jedi, but with like the Hollow Lens thing?
Yep.
So here's the other question: is why do these movies? The space battle can't just be a space battle. It can't just be it's us versus them. We've got ships, they've got ships. We're gonna fight. This one becomes the ships can't take off from the planet for this contrived bullshit reason. This planet seems like a really bad place to build a fleet. because they need a special beacon to guide them off the planet. Because apparently these ships don't have decent sensors on them, even though they're massive. Um, so the mission becomes we got to blow up the beacons because it's kind of it they didn't want to do just we have to blow up the super weapon, even though that's functionally what they're doing, because now each one of these star destroyers is a super weapon. But the next MacGuffin in the movie is we got to blow up this beacon, and they go to blow it up, and then of course the Imperials are like, they're going to blow up the beacon, we'll just switch to the backup beacon, which is on a star destroyer. So they just blow it up there, and then the ships start to take off, and then the fleet comes in. But like, why? It just is contrived. It's like, oh yeah, we can't take off from this planet without this beacon. Like that seems like a terrible place to park your fleet then.
Yeah. Well, it's also really weird that they were buried underground.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
They
I'm
were
not.
supposed to be double hidden. We're in we're in the unknown regions, which is apparently an area that's really hard to traverse at hyperspace, so no one goes there. Then on top of that, you apparently have to go through this nebula, which Ray had to go through with the little beacon that she had to show them through. Then on top of that, the star destroyers were underground on a planet with weird electromagnetics and storms and stuff. And it's like, I guess, I mean, that's why nobody found it.
Yeah.
But nobody stumbled across it. But who cares? You could put it on any planet. And if you stumble across it, hey, we'll blow you up with our 10,000 star destroyers.
Yeah. And then what else happened? Oh yeah. So
What
Kylo.
else happened? The
Ky-
peak of the movie.
yeah. Kylo gets there and he's like walking towards the throne room or whatever, and he's confronted by whatever's left of the Knights of Ren. I guess, is that who that was supposed to be?
Those were the Knights of Ren that
Yeah.
were,
And
they didn't have a single line of dialogue. It was
yeah.
never explained like what or who they are. Um,
All of
they're
their
just
outfits. Okay, now all of their outfits kind of made me chuckle because they reminded me of like something you'd see from like. Did you ever see Running Man, the
yeah,
Arnold Schwarzenegger film?
yeah.
Like that's the kind of like outfits that I like saw on them. I was like, they didn't like like a uniform
No,
force.
they're all a little bit different.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just like
if there's just one of them, you can only sell one toy. But if you make them all a little bit different, you can sell 6 different, toys.
this is true.
Now, none of this matters because nobody's buying toys for this movie. I was just doing my Christmas shopping, and everywhere that I went, like every toy store, the Star Wars section was pathetic. I saw stuff from Solo, a Star Wars story. I saw stuff left over from the fucking Force Awakens, which was how many years ago now? Like, was
Uh,
that movie 4 years
4 years
ago?
ago, yeah.
There's leftover stock from that. There's leftover stock from Solo. Um, there's nothing from The Last Jedi, but I think that's just because it didn't sell for so long. They took it off. And I saw almost nothing from this new film. My wife commented, she's like, "Oh, there's Mandalorian stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, there is. There's that ATST with the weird paint on it." And I think somewhere she said she saw like the Lego Razor Crest. Lego has Star Wars stuff because Lego always has Star Wars stuff because that's a good seller. But like, just regular stores, the Jurassic Park section is about twice the size everywhere we went than Star Wars. And there's not a new Jurassic Park film. There's a new Star Wars film right before Christmas. And the lack of merchandise just shows me that kids don't give a shit about this anymore. You know what sells right now with toys? Fortnite. You go, and everything I saw was Fortnite. So
Yeah.
it's like Fortnite's killing it. That's the mythology that kids like now, is just Fortnite, and Star Wars is dead.
Yeah, and it's really sad.
It's like, Star Wars is, you would think that's the thing though. It's when you make it so shallow and you make it where kids aren't interested in it, they're not going to buy the toys. You can make all the toys you want. But the reason we bought the toys when we were kids is because we felt connections with these things, the pilots and the ships and the weapons and stuff. And it's like kids today, they're like, it's a bunch of colorful scenes played in a row. And then I'm going to go play Fortnite when I get home.
Right.
So just it to me, that says that they're failing. It just says that this whole thing is a failure. You
Yeah.
wanna you wanna tell them
Oh.
how it ends?
Oh well. First of all, like, I, I just the amount of times where like they did a transference through the Force across the universe or across the like to another planet. It irritated the fuck out of me because it was
Oh, it
just
happened
like
over and
it
over again.
happened so many times. Um, and so what Rey does is she links with Kylo, and then she transfers a lightsaber to him so he can fight the Knights of Ren. And then he comes up to fight Palpatine with Rey. And this is where I'm confused. So I I I was of the mind that Palpatine knew she would never actually strike him down, and that it was kind of baiting him or baiting her, and he knew that they would come together and uh,
See,
he could
I
drain
think
their forces. But then again, the way he reacted to being regenerated by them,
yeah, it's like he didn't
he
know.
didn't know.
I think he was just riffing. I
Yeah,
think
maybe
that
he
he
was
was
just
like,
kind of
"Oh,
winging it.
wait,
I
I
don't
can
know.
just heal myself. I don't have to die." And like, because it looked like he was ready to be struck down,
Yeah,
um,
and then
and to have that power move into her.
so they come together, and he realizes that they form a dyad, which I guess is a thing. And he's like, I
Because
will use the power of the dyad to revive myself. And he like
right,
drains force power from both of them, and he like his hands heal, his face heals a little bit, and his eyes are no longer blind,
and he can stand up.
and he
Like
can stand on his own.
he's basically like 30 years younger where he was
Yeah,
in the end of Return of the Jedi.
yeah. So he goes and he is all happy about that. And
Yeah,
what happens? Oh yeah, Kylo
he
gets up first,
Kylo
and
recovers,
he just like force and Palpatine just
throws him down a pit.
throws him down a pit, and then Ray,
Palpatine's like, "I got thrown down a pit," and I'm like, "Yeah, it didn't kill you either."
yeah, and and Ray stands up, and he's like, he's like demonstrating his power, and he like puts his hands in the air, and I was like, at that point in time, I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Because he like shoots lightning into the air, and he hits the entire fleet
Yeah,
of.
which I kind of understand. Like, how did he not hit the Star Destroyers? It was like
Yeah,
very
that's
accurate, long range. I mean, it's I'm fine with him being able to do that. I guess, like it's the max level Sith. Like, okay,
yeah,
but it still looked kind of silly. And again, when we talk about everything being shot from such a boring, like it was not well shot. Like he puts his hands up and he shoots the fleet, and the fleet, these are massive ships, right? A lot of these ships, they're like Mon Calamari cruisers and stuff like that that are coming in. There, it's such a wide shot that the biggest ship looks like it's tiny, and so they're all just like kind of falling around, like almost like ship dust. And I'm like, this would be more effective if it was like closer and it held on like one or two ships, and you saw like the lightning hitting the ship, and like we could get a sense of the scale, like how big are these ships. There's no sense of scale in a lot of these fights, and particularly in this part there's no sense of scale of what's happening up there. And there were a couple scenes where it's like they're on the bridges of the ship, and it's like lightning's dancing around the consoles and stuff, and they're like, oh, our screens are off and we're crashing, but like just not well shot because there was never, it's just really far away and there's all these ships falling to the planet, and you're like, okay, that's really boring to look at. um so then Ray tries to kill him. Does Ray try to kill him then, or does she not?
Ray goes to attack him, and he shoots lightning at her, and which frees up the ships up above.
That's right.
And he's like, "You can't stop me. I have all the Sith in me." And she's like, "I have all the Jedi in me."
That's
And
right.
then
When
she
she was
takes the
knocked on her
second
ass,
she takes the second lightsaber, and well, yeah, because when she was knocked on her ass the first time,
she got the cheerleading from everybody.
yeah, you can hear like Obi-Wan and
It was everyone. It was
like
Luke. It was Vader. It
Luke,
was
Vader,
I think
Leia.
Ahsoka was in there, and like
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah, you could hear everybody, and
Probably what's his name from Rebels. I don't even remember
yeah,
his name, but like it was like every Jedi that's ever spoken.
yeah. So they basically she for redirects the Emperor's lightning back at him, and it like disintegrates him.
So just remember, if you strike down the Sith Lord in anger with your lightsaber, he can possess you. But if you reflect his own force lightning back at him with your lightsaber and melt his face, he can't possess you because one's done in anger, the other one's also done in anger, but like it's his anger. I don't know. That made no sense either.
Yeah,
It's like she still killed him.
and then of course she like drops dead at that point,
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, I guess she's.
which I thought there had been, okay, this is like super spoilers. So if you've gotten this far, I what I had heard from the leaks was Kylo gets thrown down the thing and unceremoniously killed. And I thought that can't be it. And when we watched it happen, I'm like, he's getting back up. I was like, there's no way that's how Kylo Ren went out. There's no way. And so she dies from, I guess, reflecting all that evil force energy. Fine. He gets up, runs over to her. Now he's a Jedi, so he can do the light side power stuff, you know? He
Yeah.
heals her, and I'm like, and I literally turned to you and I said, "I'm so glad that they didn't kill Ben," because honestly, I would have been okay with Rey dying because I think Ben's been like him or hate him, I think he's been the more interesting character, and I think he's had much more of an arc. And I think his arc from being a like petulant little asshole to being like, sacrificing everything to try to kill the Emperor and basically becoming a Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, and he's the Skywalker that's risen. And um, I thought that was great. I'm like, I turned to you and I was like, I'm really glad. Like, I thought they had done a last minute edit where, you
Yeah.
know what, we're gonna turn this around. She's actually gonna be the one that makes the ultimate sacrifice, which makes me like her character a lot more. And like he made it, and now he can like go on and lead the Jedi Order. He goes up and heals her. I go, okay, that's fine too. Um, that's great. Whatever. They both live. It kind of, again, this is another thing where a character dies and there was a sacrifice, and we immediately reverse it.
Yep.
And we're doing that again. Okay, we're immediately reversing it, but whatever. It's the end of the series. We're probably never going to see these two characters again. Like, fine, let them have it. They kiss, have a happy ending. Then Kylo drops dead, and that's where I'm just like, I'm out. I'm done. Like, I'm completely like, I'm out. It just it he should not have been the one to die. She should have been the one to die. If one of them had to. I think he did his part, but I don't think that like I just thought that was wrong. I thought it was the opposite of what it should have been.
Oh yeah, for sure. I thought that was really, really fucking stupid.
Plus, all most of the characters, like Leia's dead, so she can't have any emotional impact with Kylo dying. There's no one to really mourn Kylo except for Rey. Like Poe and Finn don't give a shit. It's not like she's gonna come back and tell them. But if Kylo comes out and like tells them, and they all have to deal with Rey's death, like, but it's like we're sad about that, but there's hope. And then
Right.
Kylo's come back to us as like, Kylo's the new, Jedi that's going to build a new Jedi order. Like I think it just makes more sense from a story point of view. And it also like her arc is over now. Like there's nowhere for her to go. And then we got to get to the second worst part other than star destroyers that blow up planets for me. This was the part that I really really hated. At the end, she takes everybody's lightsabers and she takes them to Tatooine, and buries them. And this woman walks up to her.
She
This is the
buries them.
second
She buries them on Luke's old
on Luke's
farm.
old farm on Tatooine, which
And
is fine.
by the way, I was kind of like, I guess it's fine. I mean,
It's
the
whatever.
thing
Leia
is
has no
that
connection to there, but
the thing is that I had a couple things that kind of ran through my head. I was like, one, is there still like equipment and shit? Wouldn't the Jawas have just like gutted the place? And two, if in fact, like I'm thinking of it from like a world, and
yeah,
maybe I'm just thinking about this too much because
the
whatever.
Jawas
But
would have definitely gutted that
like
the moisture
from
vaporators.
a real world perspective, if for some reason, like say let's say superheroes existed, okay, and you find out that the superhero that protected the world from something died, and you found out that their hometown was in Gary, Indiana.
Yeah, don't
Gary,
you think
Indiana
people would descend on it?
would be like descending on it.
Yeah,
Like they would capitalize on like people visiting it. There
there'd
would
be
be
gift shops and
memorials. There'd be
stuff.
gift shops. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, like there would be some kind of tribute to where it all
Yeah.
started,
When
kind
they're
of
when
thing.
they're digging it up for the monument, some construction worker is gonna find those lightsabers.
Exactly. So I'm like,
But
okay.
but
So
here was the part that really bothered me for two reasons. Number one, this happens multiple times in these movies. In this one particular, it happens at least twice where somebody asks Ray her name. What's your name? Oh, I'm Ray. What's your last name? Has that ever happened? Has anybody ever like talked to you and been
well,
like, "Oh, hey, hi, I'm this," and you're like, "Hi, I'm this,"
what's your
and do
last
they
name?
go, "What's your last name?" Like
I mean,
that's
I've
not
had people say
natural.
that at work, but it's like, oh, I want to talk
Oh,
to a
they need
manager kind of thing. You know,
yeah,
they
or they
need that.
need
You
your
know what I
last name
mean?
for work.
They
Like,
need it
oh
for
yeah,
work. You know,
yeah.
like
Nope, it's not a natural thing to say in conversation. And so she's there, she buries the lightsabers, and this old lady on a horse thing, camel thing, comes up and is like, "No one's been here for a long time. Who are you?" And she's like, "I'm Ray." And the lady's like, "What's your last name or whatever? What's your family name?"
she goes Ray who, or is this she say Ray
Ray
who,
who?
or yeah
And
Ray
it's like,
who?
what a weird thing. You don't say that to people. It's like that's not a normal reaction. That's what I mean about
Like
dialogue
I
feeling
mean, that
unnatural.
would have been my reaction to be like, who are you? I'm Ray. Ray who? Well, who the fuck are you? Like
Yeah, or it's like, or there. The second question is like, what are you doing here? This place has been abandoned. It's not like, what's your last name? What information is her last name going to tell you that her first name? Like, what? So
yeah.
anyway, so she pauses. She takes a really long time. She looks over and she sees Luke and Leia. The lady's got to think she's a lunatic because she's just staring off into space. And she looks back and she goes,
Ray
Ray Skywalker.
Skywalker.
Fuck you.
And I
Okay.
was like, I don't know if you saw, like, I literally like gave the middle finger to the screen. I was like, are you
I did
fucking?
not see that. I think
Oh
I
my
was like,
god.
I knew it was coming too because I had heard it, and by this point, all the spoilers I had read had pretty much been spot on,
Yeah, basically.
except for the part with Kylo dying when he was thrown. But I'm guessing
Yeah,
they that was one of the re-edits they did
yeah,
because I'm guessing that pissed people off. But
probably. Well, and
and
that's
I
the
told you
thing.
after the movie. I told you after the movie, a Palpatine taking the Skywalker name, whether you think she's earned it or not, a Palpatine taking the Skywalker name is to me just would be like Adolf Hitler's son taking the name Goldberg. It's just insulting to everything that happened. Like it's just inappropriate.
Yeah.
Like be who you are, but I just can't believe that Palpatine's granddaughter and that also
And
changes the
what
whole movie because now the movie Rise of Skywalker is all about Rise of Rey, and I was really hoping like Rise of Skywalker should be Rise of Ben. Like, if Ben took the name Skywalker, I mean, kind of be a middle finger to his dad, but I mean, he's taking on that mantle as a Jedi. Um, I would be more okay with that. But the fact that Rise of Skywalker is a Palpatine, it rubbed me the wrong way. And I don't know if it's gonna bother everyone that way, but I was just like,
oh
come
no, it
on.
bothered me. It would be uh, I don't know. It
If she
was
just and that's the whole thing is Luke even said like your blood matters less than what you want to be. But to me, that means like you can say you're a Palpatine and maybe try to turn that around for the galaxy so it
right,
doesn't
right.
have the
Like
connotation. Like the fact that she's just like, it's not like she doesn't know her last name now. She knows her last name.
I just remember I think we were right there when Ray got to Exegol. I just remember you texting me, like you typing the little message and like you were like, I haven't, like, what did you say? I said
I
I
can't
can't
feel
feel anything
anything
right now.
anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's just and the movie was so and we've kind of touched on it. Like I said, people just have to watch it for themselves. But the movie is so this and that and all over the place and it has no emotional tone and because it's jumping all over like I got to the point where like I said I was never fully engaged in this movie but I'm sitting there and I'm just like I don't give a shit anymore like nothing that's happening makes me feel anything. I'm not excited, I'm not frightened for the characters, I'm not hopeful. I'm just like yep, and this is this scene and this is this scene and this is the worst shot space battle I've seen in the entire 9 movies, especially if you include Rogue One, 11 movies we've had now. Oh god, we've had 11 Star Wars
I
movies.
will say that I mean I did like the fact that um Mark Hamill was actually like there was a shadow of what we would have expected Luke Skywalker to be in the Last
To be
Jedi.
like the
Yeah,
wise old
the
Jedi,
wise
yeah,
Jedi who
pure
is
and
hopeful and pure
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, they tried to retcon his character a little bit too.
Yep.
I think they're taking the wrong lesson from it. Like people like Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger are saying things like, "Yeah, there's really just been too much Star Wars." It's like, "No, it's just that it's been bad." Like I know people do say, "Oh, there's too much Marvel," but most of the Marvel movies are pretty good and quality, and at least you can tell a lot of them are passion projects. Maybe not Thor: Dark World,
But
maybe not Ant
they
Man
also they
2.
also have a pro like a head lead that like has like a
That
vision.
yeah, they have like, here's the plan. Here's how we're going to get to Endgame. I think they're going to start to have a little bit of trouble now. They need a new thing that they need to build up for the next 10 years, and I don't know if they'll be able to build that. But you're right, like, there's leadership and direction, and it feels like it's all going somewhere. These movies, you had the first one, which was a reboot of A New Hope. You had the second one, which just shit on everything and destroyed everything, and it's like, you can't do that in the second part of a three-act structure. You can't in the second film of 3 films, you can't tear everything down, because then the third film becomes this over bloated mess because they basically have to cram 3 movies into the last movie to rebuild something. Like, it was I just don't understand, and I don't make movies, but to me, the fact that it just blows my mind that you would just rip everything down in the second film. Like,
Yeah, I don't get it. I
you can
just don't
rip
get it.
everything down in the first film, like, absolutely, like, they should have done that. In the first film, they should have been like, "Okay, there's a new republic, and there's a Jedi Order," and by the end of the movie, both of those things could have been gone. You could have ripped them both down, you could have killed Luke Skywalker, or you could have killed, Han Solo, and, like, then you really put us, because the second movie is supposed to be your darkest point, and then the third movie lifts you back up. The second movie, and this wasn't the darkest point, the second movie just, changed the story.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of finality to what happened in TLJ for me, at least. I mean, I felt like there was like that whole mimicking of the throne room scene
Yeah.
and Snoke being killed, and of course,
Stuff that was
there's
really inappropriate
yeah,
for
it
the
was
second
it was
movie.
like okay, this is supposed to be like it almost felt like a final showdown kind of almost with Snoke,
I If there had been
you know?
hints from the beginning in the first movie, like Snoke had been talking to some like master above him, like this, I really feel that they're going to try to sell it as like, no, the plan for the entire time was to have Palpatine, and I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And if they did, you've got to drop hints. You can't just in the last movie be like, actually, guys, it was Palpatine the whole time. It's like you do a Vietnam movie, okay? You do a Vietnam movie, and in the Vietnam movie, you find off, not to bring up Hitler again, but you find out Adolf Hitler's pulling all the strings in Vietnam, and you're just like, "What?" Like, that doesn't make any sense. And, like, they could have done it. They could have been like, "Oh, Palpatine still has power, and he's trying to get power back." But he shouldn't have just started with 10,000 Star Destroyers, not including the First Order and, like, unlimited resources. It should have started with, like, the Imperial Remnant starting some shit again and then wondering like, why is the Imperial Remnant acting up again? And it's like because they've been building up for 30 years and now they think like maybe they have a chance if they can turn Rey to the dark side. You know, you can write a movie about this, but this is like a trilogy shoved into one 3-hour experience and it's just gives me a headache.
Yeah, it is not a good movie.
It's not. I still think it's better than The Last Jedi. Because number one, at least this whole trilogy mess is over. You know,
Well, and not only
I
that,
liked when it ended.
it didn't uh it wasn't an insult to I, I think the most grievous thing from Last Jedi is the character assassination of Luke.
Yeah, The Last Jedi ruined Luke Skywalker, and it also the fact that the whole plot was built around a low speed chase that made no sense because they could have just done a hyperdrive jump in front of the cruiser and killed everyone in the resistance. And instead they decided to participate for no reason in a low speed chase for, weeks. It's kind of implied that they're going for a really long time because Finn and what's her name go to that planet, like Casino Planet, and they get arrested and they're gone. They must have had some travel time too.
Yeah, right.
But now it's implied in these movies that like travel time between planets is really quick. I used to always think that like, when Luke went to Dagobah, he probably spent a couple days in that X-wing. But now it's like at the end of Rise of or the end of the Force Awakens, Rey gets on the Falcon, like walks to the front. They're at hyperspace, and she doesn't even change clothes, and all of a
Right.
sudden they're at that planet. I'm like, it's really kind of shot like it was just a couple moments.
You've been floating in space for how long trying to get a signal? Oh, you must smell like feet wrapped in leathery burnt bacon.
God. But
Uh,
all right, well, I think that was our synopsis and review. I would say not good, better. So the new movies, for me, it goes. This is bad, but it goes. Rogue One is the best. I still like Rogue One. I'll sit and watch Rogue One occasionally just for some of the shots, like you said, the plot. And I like Krennic. I think Krennic's kind of a cool villain, and
yeah.
it feels more real. It feels more grounded. The action scenes are great. It really feels more like a war movie. So Krennic in Rogue One, good film. The second film down has to be Solo, because Solo's
Jesus
at least like,
Christ.
yeah, it's Solo has some really bad dialogue too, where it's like, "What's your last name? I don't have a last name. I don't have people. I don't have a family. Oh, so you're Solo. You're Han Solo.
Or like that
Fuck."
line where he's like, "What's your name?" It's, "Oh, Chewbacca." We're gonna have to think of something shorter because
Well,
I'm not gonna keep
yeah,
saying
because
that.
I'm not gonna say Chewbacca. No,
Like,
it's like
fuck you.
literally he didn't have to be the exact character we knew by the end of that movie. It's like, "Oh, you need a gun. Here, have this blaster. Have your iconic blaster." And have, have the Falcon and have just everything by the end. I'm surprised. Didn't somebody give him that fucking jacket too? I think
I
somebody like
can't
tossed.
remember.
I swear to God, somebody tossed him that fucking
I
jacket.
watched Rogue One or Solo on a flight, and
Oh, that's a
I
great way to
died
watch a
partially
film.
through the movie, so
it we need to sit down and watch it again sometime, like on an actual one of our big screens, and
you know what?
kind of
I think
absorb it.
we should do a commentary for one of these.
Yeah, that would be good. Not this one because this one's too long. I can't. Maybe Last Jedi.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe
TLJ
Last Jedi.
or I could do Solo, I guess.
I could do Solo too, and Solo would be good because we'd have new thoughts on it because we've each only seen it once. But
Yeah.
then, okay, so we've got. I don't know if your list is going to be the same, but mine would be Rogue One, Solo, The Force Awakens. I guess this one, The Rise of Skywalker, and then The Last Jedi. Um, and I don't know if I started to have to throw the prequels in, it would get really interesting. I think Rogue One I would actually put above all of the prequels. I know you would put Revenge of the Sith probably.
Revenge of the
I
Sith
don't
is
you like
like,
Revenge of the Sith more than Return of the Jedi?
yes,
Was that you that told me that? I
yes.
see you're insane. You're an
Now,
absolutely crazy person.
I fully understand that um the movie itself is not even remotely as good, like as far as quality and writing and stuff. I
Yeah,
just love Emperor Palpatine.
Palpatine's good at it. Palpatine's just so silly, and he's throwing shit, and
And
he's yeah.
I really enjoy Obi-Wan just hamming it up. Like at that point in time, I think Ewan McGregor was just like, I don't even give a fuck.
Well, hello there. Like I remember the very we've talked about this every time, but that movie every time it starts and they're like do the crawl and they're like we have to kill General Grievous and I'm just like who the fuck is General Grievous? Like how you just introduce a character that important in the title crawl and then he's immediately on screen and you're like what the fuck is happening? Like I don't even know what the stakes are anymore in this movie.
I couldn't believe when I was reading the title crawl for Rise of Skywalker. I was like, I'm already stroking out because it's like it starts off. It's like the dead speak, the voice of Emperor Palpatine, and I was like, no, 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 no.
You know, I didn't even read the crawl. I don't
I
know why. Like the movie started and like I was like just in my own head about what was about to happen. And like the crawl was like halfway up the screen and I was like, "Oh fuck." And like I tried to like really quickly read it, but like I don't even remember anything from the crawl. I basically couldn't read like the first paragraph.
yeah
Yeah, they didn't pull any punches with Palpatine. It was like and I guess you have to when you're shoving 3 movies into one. But I was like, okay, maybe they'll ease into the mystery of like, oh, Palpatine's back, and it'll be this like reveal at the end. No, it's like the in the fucking title crawl, like you said, and then 5 minutes in, Kylo Ren is already like confronting Palpatine and has a lightsaber in his face. I'm like, wow, that escalated quickly.
yeah. As far as my rankings, I don't know if I want to add the prequels or the.
But let's do it. Let me do mine again real
Okay,
quick
okay,
with
okay,
the
go ahead.
prequels. Okay, so
We'll throw the
Empire
original
Strikes
trilogy in there. Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back, which is the best movie ever, or one of them, and then Star Wars, and then for me it goes Return of the Jedi, Rogue One, um, fuck, Solo, I guess, then Revenge of the Sith, then Phantom Menace, then Attack of the Clones, then Force Awakens, then Rise of Skywalker, and then The Last Jedi.
I would say Um, my favorite's probably yeah, I would say Empire
Oh, of
and
course it's Empire. Come on,
Empire and
that's not
then
even.
um I'm gonna have to say that I like Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith because the of Emperor Palpatine. Um,
More than Star Wars? Star Wars isn't your two? A New Hope
nope,
isn't your number
nope,
two?
nope. Because
That
I love
that
the
blows
Emperor.
my mind. You're an insane person. He's
I'm
in
not.
that
I'm
movie
not.
though. He shows up and he walks with Darth Vader and he goes,
He
"Good,
sh-
it's almost done," or something
he
like.
shows up in
Or is he
Empire
just in
Strikes
holo?
Back.
Is he just? I swear he's in New
Nope,
Hope.
he is not in A
No,
New
he's
Hope.
not. I think he might show up as a hologram.
Nope. He
They
shows
just
up as a
talk about him.
hologram in
They just
Empire.
talk about him. Yeah, they just talk about him. You're right.
Yeah. Um, but I like Empire, and then Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith are kind of like on par for each other for my. And this is just my subjective opinion of these. Like writing wise, I know that A New Hope is better than those.
Yeah, New
Are.
Hope is very nice. Like it all ends perfectly at the Death Star, and like yeah, I think A New Hope is very. I mean, it's
Like I said,
simplistic, but
this isn't these are my rankings for my like
right,
subjective level, and I'm not talking about writing or any of that
right.
stuff
If you just
because
wanted to sit and watch one,
like is that what you're asking? Are you
yeah,
asking
like if you just
if I
wanted to
was gonna
sit and
sit
watch
and
one,
watch one? Yeah,
yeah.
these are the rankings I would choose then. So Empire, Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, then New Hope.
Okay.
Um, then I would say um probably Phantom Menace, and then
You
what?
yeah, yeah, that's about right.
Phantom Menace, and then probably I would say uh Rogue One, and then Solo, and then finally The Force Awakens, and I would say probably this movie, Rise of Skywalker, Attack of the
And then the Last
Clones,
Jedi.
and then The Last
Oh,
Jedi.
okay.
I
See,
fucking hate Attack of the Clones
I know you hate
so
Attack of the
much.
Clones. See, I'm the opposite. The thing that redeems Attack of the Clones for me, and it's a really stupid movie, world building in Attack of the Clones is actually better than the other prequel movies. And it's also they have some really cool vehicles, like
Oh,
some of the walkers and the equipment and stuff. Like I think world building in Attack of the Clones is actually better than any of the other prequels.
I think you're probably right, but like I said, for me,
Yeah, the
uh
Emperor doesn't do much in that one.
well, no, and it's not even that. It's the like I went to see that when I was probably like 12, and as a kid, like thinking about it now, like a kid should never be like watching a Star Wars movie and going, "Is this ever gonna fucking end?"
Right,
Because
and
I asked myself
I think
that when
kids
I
are
was
gonna think
watching
that
it.
about this. I think kids are gonna think that about this. They're gonna be like, "This movie, what the fuck is going on?" Like, they're not gonna be invested. They're gonna be bored.
Yeah, and then, like I
So,
said, and that's just from a purely subjective, my enjoyment level point of view. If we're talking about writing, that would just
right.
skew like writing and consistency, world building, and all that stuff. That list would completely change. Except,
I never in a million years would have thought, like, when Disney started getting these movies, if you told me before we saw The Force Awakens that the new trilogy, like, if I made a list of the 9 films, not let's throw Solo and Rogue One out, okay? Let's just take them out of it. We're just talking about trilogies.
mhm.
If you had said that in a couple years, when you make your list of the trilogies, your the bottom 3 would be the new ones, I'd be like, "There's no way." I was like, "There's no way these 3 movies are gonna be worse than the prequels." But I legitimately think they're worse than the prequels. They're not in every way. In some ways, they're better. They look more like Star Wars, and sometimes they feel more like Star Wars because the prequels were so different with all that CGI shit and like everything was so clean and pretty. Whereas, Star Wars normally has a gritty kind of look. Like these movies are just like the cynical, like make it look like Star Wars, but don't understand the spirit of Star Wars. This is what you get. Whereas the prequels had a little bit of that spirit still sprinkled in over stuff that really didn't look or feel like Star Wars.
Yeah.
But okay, so one last thing I want to talk about. Um, the last season of Game of Thrones absolutely for me 100% ruins the entire series. Like I have a really hard time, even though I love episodes of that show, and I have a hard time going back and watching it because I know where it's going to end.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
Um, do 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 these 3 movies now? lessen your enjoyment of the original trilogy? And I'm gonna say for me, they don't, because because it's not one continuous story. It's 30 years later and all that. I can kind of just retcon this out of my head canon where like none of this happened. Like I can
Yeah.
watch the original trilogy and that's the trilogy. That's the story.
Well,
Like I
it's
can kind of
self-contained.
it's
You know what I
self-contained.
mean?
It's a good story. The third one is a little bit tacked on. Okay, they built another Death Star, but they do things in it. They kill the Emperor. They win the war finally. Um, to me, it doesn't ruin the original ones, but only because I can surgically remove them from the originals and be like, "Oh, this is like this fan fiction that Disney made." Um, whereas for me, Game of Thrones is ruined because of the last season and a half. Do you
Yeah,
feel the same way?
I do feel the same way. I think that because well, the thing is that with when it comes to the original trilogy, and even adding tacking on the prequel trilogy, there's a finality to it. George had like a vision of ending the story there,
Yeah,
and basically was like, I don't really want to do it, but then he wrote some scripts and says this is kind of what I would do if I continued it, kind of thing. And
yeah,
then like I said, it's a continuation of the story. It would be like if Game of Thrones like seasons 1 through 8 happened and it was amazing, and then like 10 years down the line we get a season 9 and it's like 20 years later the
right.
characters. You can
They
separate those
defeated the
two,
Dark they
you
defeated
know.
the Night King. Yeah, they defeated the Night King. Danny ended up on the throne. And then yeah, 20 years later they were like maybe picking up pieces or something.
Yeah, something happens and another war ignites there.
I agree with you.
I'd be
This
like,
doesn't
and it's like shit quality, shit writing, everything's bad
right.
about it. You know, you can separate it, but this is part like of an overarching story that has a beginning, middle, and an end.
Yeah.
It would be like if let's say for the sake of argument that TLJ and TFA were both excellent movies, and then this movie came out and it was just the worst thing ever. It would ruin the whole trilogy for you.
Yeah, yeah, endings stick with people. Yahtzee on Zero Punctuation said something that really uh, like I've always taken this to heart. When you're making a video game or a movie or writing a story, the most important parts are the beginning and the end. And it's not to say the middle isn't important. This is particularly true of video games, but it's like when everybody talks about Mass Effect, what do they talk about? The ending of Mass Effect 3.
The ending of
Be-
Mass Effect 3. That's
because
like the big
the
sticking point for a
ending,
lot of people.
yeah, and the ending is so many times I've heard people say about video games, yeah, like it was fun to play, but the ending was awful, and so it wasn't good. If you don't, and with video games, what they really should do is they should have their story, but they should build the beginning of the game and the end, and then make they should do the middle last, because that way, if they get crunched for time, nobody's going to remember the middle. If people are like, "Oh, the middle was a little rushed," or this or that, people are going to be like, "Whatever." But when you fuck up the ending, you ruin the entire thing. And like, I don't know. To me, I had no expectations. Like, I don't know if this could have saved this trilogy. It didn't.
I don't think
I
anything really could have.
I
I mean,
think
short of making TLJ a dream sequence,
right.
you couldn't fix it.
And it's like even it went wrong right from the beginning, even with The Force Awakens getting back to like world building and like
Oh yeah,
not knowing what the
The
fuck's
Force
going on
Awakens
and
has a
like
really poorly written, poorly structured
it,
plot and world
yeah,
building.
and not only that, not only is it poorly written and poorly structured, but it's also just a reboot. So it's boring too because it's like we've seen all this before. We're just doing A New Hope over again, but worse.
Yeah,
And it's like they could have gone that it needed to go in a different direction. There needed to be an enemy other than the fucking empire. There needed to be different conflict, and instead Disney just played it super safe, and they've reaped what they sow. This movie is doing terrible numbers in China, by the way. Absolutely god awful. It's doing like half the numbers that the Last Jedi did, and the Last Jedi did not make a lot of money over there. So and it's all about China now. China's where they go see movies. China's experiencing their 1960s right now. Their big
hmm
like economic boom growth. So like everybody there's like, yeah, let's go see movies because we don't have anything else to do. And America's kind of over movies. Like we are no longer the biggest. I mean, there's also just 2 billion people over there, but we're just not as important anymore, and you start to see it with movies of like how they pander to China, but they've been trying to pander to China with these films and they're still failing. So, even their hack writing isn't accomplishing what they want. And people say, "Oh, they'll make money anyway." They won't make the money they want to make. They wanted this to be an empire, and it's not what they got. This is just incredibly it's just been so poorly mismanaged. And whose ever idea to do the theme parks, they added the Star Wars areas to Disney World and Disneyland.
Yeah.
That's just a generic planet. It's not Tatooine, it's not Endor, it's not Coruscant. It's random Star Wars planet. And you can somehow remember the names of these fucking places from these movies, but I can't. And I feel like people have said they go there and they're like, okay, it's random, like sandy buildings and some of these new stormtroopers walking around, and the Millennium Falcon's parked there. And the only thing that people have any connection to is the Millennium Falcon that's parked there, you know? So it's like, why would you do that? Why would you buy an IP? They did Pandora, but can you imagine if they had Avatar and they built their Avatar land and it wasn't set on Pandora? It's like, no, this is this other
Right,
planet they
right.
were mining. It's like a desert planet and there aren't any locals on it, but but we've got some rides and it's from the Avatar universe. Everyone would be like, "What?" And that's exactly what they did with Star Wars. All right, well, I think we've ranted for long enough about this garbage piece of shit film. Better, in my opinion, better than Last Jedi, but not good.
Yeah, I mean that's like I said, not a high bar there, but yeah, slightly better than the Last Jedi.
Yeah. Well, if anybody's stuck with us this long, I appreciate it. We're going to try to record in 2020. This is our little comeback video. So, yeah, stick with us and listen to us on your drive or something.
All right, thank you.